All right, welcome back, Nitty Gritty. We have two special guests with us today. We have an hermano de sangre, because Cam is not with us, and so I had to replace him with another family member. And you're going to get to know him better because you're going to be a guest soon, but not yet. So we're just going to tease that. But Clint, also the provider of many guests recently. So thanks for being here.
I'm willing to open up all of my network to you. It's part of the law of consecration.
You're an idiot. But we have Kyle Nielson with us. We have sales rep, supercar, NBA fan, sneaker king. I mean, the list just kind of goes on and on. This is going to be fun. So thanks for being here, dude.
No problem. Thanks for dealing with my crazy schedule and finally getting me in.
Yeah, I know.
Is there anything like super cool that you're not into? Because that was just like the coolest list ever.
I'm trying to get back into Pogs.
Are you serious?
No, I mean, maybe.
I laughed just because like 2 days ago I was talking to someone and I was talking to them about like NFTs and stuff. And they're like, this feels just like Pogs. I was like, oh, I haven't heard the word Pog in so long. And then you brought it up. That's really funny.
Yeah.
So anyways, dude, thanks for coming. We've already had the pregame and we covered it. Like,
any Woj bombs coming through right now?
It like scratched the itch for jazz, because like if you want to know anything jazz related, this is your dude. So if we get distracted in the middle, today is the trade deadline, which means a lot can happen in the NBA world today that we're all very closely paying attention to.
It's what, 3 p.m. Eastern is the cutoff?
3 or 4, yeah. So literally, it's right in the middle of this podcast. It will be the end, which means there's going to be like a flurry of trades happening while we're talking. So anyways,
this will be fun.
It's going to be a good time. Before we jump into the NBA stuff, I want to kind of hear a little bit more. I know. Oh, other thing, you work with Vess.
Yeah.
So Vess was one of our very first guests way back in the day, Aptive. And so I'd love to hear kind of your story into Aptive. I've heard like bits and pieces from Vess and other friends before, but I've never heard like the whole story.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear kind of where you grew up and kind of what childhood was like and kind of how we got to Aptive. And then we'll kind of go from there.
Cool. Yeah. So I grew up in San Bernardino, California.
Okay.
So Southern California, a city that I would be happy to not have to go live in, again. Grew up down there.
How many siblings?
Sorry, brain fog. I have four brothers and a sister, so I have 6 total.
Got it.
2 older brothers, 2 younger brothers, and then a little sister that came along quite a few years after my younger brother.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Big family. Did a lot of outdoor stuff, camping, scouts, church ball, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Growing up, and it was fun. Like childhood was great, but we really didn't have a lot of things when you're 6 kids living in California. My mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
What'd
your dad do?
He was a plumber.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Had his own plumbing company at one point, but then didn't want to have to be the boss, and then he got hired on with a bigger construction company as a foreman, and did commercial construction, commercial plumbing.
Oh, very cool.
Growing up, so I'd spend my summers digging ditches and hanging pipes and all that kind of stuff to earn money for school and scout camp and all that stuff. Yeah.
Very cool.
Perfect the crack.
Yeah, I can definitely. It's still mastered. still mastered. It's definitely have the crack on point. But yeah, so then I in 2003, my house burned down in Southern California. So like a wildfire came off the mountain. An arsonist was driving up the canyon, throwing road flares out the window, caught the whole mountain on fire. Like crazy damage was done.
For like any reason specifically, or just wanted to burn crap down?
Just wanted to burn stuff down. And so a lot of homes were lost. Our house was one of them.
How old were you?
I was just right out of high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So just graduated the year before.
So what was that like? I mean, were you like in the house? Like, did you know?
Yeah.
What was
so
happening?
we saw the fire. I wanted to get into film school. I had a little film production company back in high school, kind of into junior college and stuff. And so I saw the fire start on the mountain, pulled up my camera, started videotaping and stuff. I think I actually sold the footage to ABC News.
Did you really?
Yeah, they bought it off me for a few $100s of the early stages and stuff of everything. And then the police came by and said, hey, houses down this low aren't going to burn down. The smoke's getting really bad. Evacuate, but plan on being back in a day or two. Just grab your valuable stuff and come back. And within 15 minutes of us leaving, the fire had jumped down and wind had picked up and, our stuff was gone.
Oh
and
my gosh. What was that like? I mean, do you still remember?
Yeah.
Like, is it something that like is
right
right
so
there?
You got the opportunity to answer that question, like that existential question. If your house is going to light on fire, what are the things that you grab before you go?
Yeah. I mean, I probably asked my parents because I grabbed like a few little things like my videotapes of videos I hadn't edited yet and stuff. Pogs burned up, Pokemon cards burned up. All the things that are worth money now pretty much burned up.
Yeah.
But you grab like your tax documents, birth certificates, family photo albums. Like we rescued a lot of that kind of stuff.
So like as you guys were taking out, did you know when you were taking out that it was going to burn down, or were you still just thinking?
No, they just came to and evacuated. Said we don't think it's going to come down this far.
Okay.
Smoke's really too thick right now to tell where everything's at, but because of smoke inhalation, we want you.
So you weren't packing up then, thinking
not at
this
all.
is the last time we're coming back here.
Yeah. And then my uncle called us about 15 minutes later, and like he was crying. He said, I grabbed the garden hose. I saw the house start picking up on fire. Like I tried to get everything out, but tried to put it out, but I couldn't. And
oh my god.
And it was that my great grandpa had built the house and stuff, and so that was kind of a pivotal, like a change in my life where I was like, that was one of those instances where everyone has like something changed, and you look back though, and like everything that I lost like doesn't really matter because of all the things that I've gained and the trajectory that my life was then put on from that.
Yeah.
I
love that perspective. So one of my favorite things that I learned from like my coach was like, events only have the meanings that we give them, right? Which is like everyone gets to choose the meaning that they attach to something that happens to them. So you could choose, to be a victim and say, hey, woe is me, my house burned down. And it would be really easy to do that. Like I lost all of this stuff, and you choose that path. Or you can look back and say, okay, that sucked. Where do I go from here? What did I learn from here? Yeah. The old Rocky, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you stand back up.
You get hit and keep moving forward,
Oh my gosh.
That was
really
good.
I try to do some voices. Maybe we'll do some voices on this podcast too.
So one thing you really kind of glazed over, I want to touch just a little bit. What was it about film in high school? Like you wanted to have a film company? Yeah.
So I started I skateboarded back in high school, and I was breaking too many bones.
Okay.
But I loved like the people I was around in the industry. So I picked up a camera and started filming.
Okay.
With my friend Daniel, and started making videos for companies and local skate shops and sponsor videos to get people on board with companies and Shorties and Volcom and all that kind of stuff.
So how did you know how to do that?
Didn't. Okay. And YouTube wasn't around back then either. Like this was like 1998, 99, 2000. You just learned. Like we just read books, and I think I remember having like Adobe Premiere for Dummies, like for the yellow and black book. Goes through step-by-step stuff.
What inside of you gave you the confidence to do that? Like what was it that was, I can figure this out?
I don't know. Like I've always, whatever I decide to do it, typically I find a way to do it. Sure. Like I've been a really big figure it outer with things. And obviously if I don't think I can figure it out, then I don't even attempt. I'll, either hire somebody at this point or, have someone else do it. But I mean, video was something that I've always liked and enjoyed, going to the movies, worked at a movie theater through high school and stuff too. And so like kind of that, I was always kind of in that, like I wanted to be around the movie scene. And so that the skateboard videos evolved to like doing wedding videos and highlight tapes for football, like college senior or high school seniors trying to go and apply for colleges. Okay. That kind of stuff.
Which is cool because that wasn't a thing back then either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I'd give them a VHS tape to mail off, and then I remember getting a DVD burner, and I was able to actually start putting stuff on DVDs, but not a lot of people had DVD players.
So you went straight VHS to DVD, and you passed Laserdisc.
Yeah.
You didn't want to do
glazed over the Laserdisc.
Dude, I remember that. Dude, the quality of that was so bad. I still have like the old VHS of like my tape that I made like for colleges from high school basketball. It is so bad you can't even like see
Nice
who
humble
it
brag.
is. Huh?
Nice humble brag.
Boom.
The quality was bad, but the playing was good.
Play was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, but like I tried showing my kids because I was like, guys, I promise at one point in my life, I was a decent athlete. I promise I was. And they're like, well, which one are you? I'm like, ooh, see that like blur,
Fuzzy.
that blob? I think that one is me.
Why?
And
why
to think that that's what I'm sending colleges, it's just like, oh yeah, you could for sure see.
I was really good. So I worked at Blockbuster Video when I was in high school, and that's also a humble brag. And I got really.
how old are you?
Hey, this pod isn't about me though. No, but I remember I got really good at the tracking. Remember the little tracking little thing you had to run back and forth because when it got blurry and messed up, dude, I was like a savant with that thing, man. Like turning that sucker and made it crystal clear blobs.
That's awesome.
Nice. Yeah, so I did that. I wanted to do some video stuff and
Okay.
was actually getting into taking some courses at junior college and went to school for that. Ultimately dropped out. But after my house burned down, I had to kind of find a new circle of friends. We relocated to a new home, a new stake and ward down in Southern California, and I was kind of forced to go meet new people.
Okay.
And in that group of people were the people that introduced me to Vess. And he was a branch manager at the time for our very, very first, startup rendition of the pest control world.
For sure.
And that's when I met my wife.
Okay.
Like just this whole new circle of friends just plugged me into every great thing that I've had moving forward. So
Oh, isn't that so cool that you would have never got to there?
Yeah.
To your point, without like the fire, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's so cool. So Vess was one of your first introductions then into the pest control world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Vess was leading a sales team, and I was on the operations side.
Okay.
Back in 2007. So the house burned down 2003. Meet a new circle of friends 2004. 2005, leave on my LDS mission. 2005, back 2007, go to Mexico City, and my circle of friends from pre-mission said, "Hey, you want to come work for us? You need a job. You're back from your mission."
Okay.
And at that point is when I met Vess.
Got it.
And
And so you didn't go out on the sales side then?
no, I started off as a tech.
Okay.
Spraying houses. And looking back, like I was 3 years on the operations side before I made the jump to the sales side.
Okay.
It was probably better that way and it worked out the way it was supposed to, but I do have like minor regret of like, what if I would have started out selling
Yeah.
3 years prior? Where would I be
Sure.
in the company, and where would I be with, finances and
Yeah.
everything else? But
What made you choose the tech side over the sales side?
I just didn't like I didn't like the summer sales bro like image from
Yeah.
back then. Like they would come down to like our singles wards, and they'd have their polo collar pop and their puka shell necklaces on, and they'd break all the hearts of the girls in the ward. And yeah, so my initial exposure to like the summer sales culture was just these Utah bros.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't want to be one of those guys.
Yep.
And then so it really was when I met Vess and met the other sales reps within Aptive's, group, that I was like, these guys aren't weird. They're not.
Yeah.
Vess is one of the most genuine, non-bro
Yeah, for
people
sure.
that you'll ever meet. And so I was like, okay, there's something different about this company.
Yeah.
And it was then that I decided to ride the wave till it crashed. And I said, if this company is as good as the people are, they're going to go off and do big things. And this is a group of people that I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And so that's when I stopped, dropped out of film school. And, 15 years later, here I am still riding the wave.
Awesome. So first summer, dropped out of film school, or did you go do it first to like test the
So
waters?
I was a little bit. So like if I went back to school now, I'd have to kind of start over.
Okay.
Because of the way the editing and video and film, I mean, you can get better quality off your phone now than I could have on any cameras and stuff I was using.
For sure.
Platforms, editing, like software. So I mean, I still do a little bit, but yeah, I pretty much just cold turkey stopped and decided to run with the company. And so I was a tech my first year with the company, and then I was a service manager over the technicians my second year. Moved up to the Bay Area my third year, was a branch manager, started that branch from scratch. So I would order the trucks, the licensing, permitting, hired the office staff, the service technicians, did all the sales rep payroll. And it was that year doing the sales payroll and seeing what these guys were making in a summer and comparing that to what I was making in a year.
Yeah.
Whereas like some of these guys, if they're really good, are making in a summer what I'm making in a whole year, and I'm living in one of the most expensive areas to live in the US.
Yeah.
And so I called up Vess and Dave, and they had independently talked. Dave was the co-founder, and they had independently talked about moving me over as well, which wasn't a typical transition. Typically, people are saying, I'm done knocking doors, put me in something different.
Yep.
But because I had experience on the operation side, I knew what the products were, I knew what the service entailed, I knew how to set expectations correctly, and I had ran the best branch in the company that year. They were like, hey, maybe he would be good on this side. So when I called
that's
him,
not like a common thing.
No.
Like the crossover in anything from pest control, alarms, satellite, like anything from like the operations technical side to the sales side, it's very, very rare that anyone ever crosses over.
yeah. And there's always a disconnect. There's historically a disconnect, sales and operations.
Yep.
And so maybe by me transitioning over to the sales side, the training and how I trained my sales force and how I trained everybody and the culture I built was very much in line with the operations side, which led to a better customer experience, better sales retention, better earnings overall. And so it was honestly the best move that I could have done.
Yeah.
It's actually it's like a parallel with like Larry H. Miller. Larry H. Miller started in the parts department.
Okay.
Have you
Yeah,
read his
right.
book?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Anyways, he started in the parts department and was like, I'm going to make this the most amazing experience ever for all these people that are ordering parts from us. And that's where he started. He's like, and if I work harder than everyone and I learn operations better than everyone, that's going to, grow to bigger and better things. And so, and he always talks about how that was like the base that he built on, to build the Larry H. Miller empire.
If you're comparing me to Larry H. Miller, I'll take it.
100%, dude.
I'll take
100%.
it.
100%.
Yeah. So yeah, I
What was the hardest part for you for the switch? Like was there ever a moment where it was like, oh crap, I should have just stayed where I was?
So I think the scary part was just the leap of going from a salary with health insurance and a company vehicle and a company phone to 100% commission.
Yeah.
And that, like, once I made that leap and like I trusted myself enough and I saw the trust that my wife had in me to do it. She never really doubted. She said, if you think you can do it, you can.
Yeah.
Made the leap, and that was the last time I ever really let it shake me.
Okay.
Later the next year we had our first kid, got stuck with, I think like $15,000-$20,000 worth of medical bills because of some complications and some different things there. And after it all shook out, after my first summer of earnings, you take the medical bills away, and I made almost exactly what my salary would have been the last year after taking out the medical bill expenses.
Okay.
And so had I had stayed on the other job, even with the insurance, the stuff that happened wouldn't have been covered or marginally covered. And so you take another $20K out of a salary in the Bay Area, I would have been, not in a good spot. And like for me, that was like a good confirmation that I made a good move.
Okay.
And then from there, I went from like sales rep that first year to leading a team the next year to managing a division and then a region the next year and then senior regional and a VP. And now I'm a president of sales with the company. And so it's been fun.
It's the coolest story. It's so rare to see that crossover, right? But it's so cool to go from like house burning down to president of sales to a however many billion-dollar company Aptive is hopefully going to be here pretty soon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that's pretty rad. But as you were growing your teams, is there anything that you took from either the technical side or kind of your past that you think made a difference in either how you recruited or how you trained? Because I think one of the most interesting things, or maybe one of your greatest talents, is like the culture you create. And I think Aptive is good at it as well, but specifically to you. And what have you done that intentionally, or has that just kind of been your personality?
I've never really I've never really stepped back to think about it, but I guess I'd have to say that I got into the summer sales, the actual sales side later in the game. My first summer selling, I was 26, turning 27 that next year.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't this 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old. I'd been married already, brand new baby. My daughter was 3 weeks old when I went out for my first summer. And so I had this kind of parental instinct. So when it came time for me to start recruiting and training, I kind of had this maybe this parental mindset where,
Yeah.
anyone, do you have kids too? I mean, any one of us, like, we want our kids to have everything we have and more. Like, we want to give our kids a better life. We want to give our kids a better opportunity. We want our kids to, succeed and have victories. And so I went into, anytime I'd recruit somebody, I would look at the team I was building and how I was recruiting from kind of this parental lens. Like, are these decisions I'm making going to be the best for my wife, for my kids? Are these decisions I'm making going to be the best for my team and for my region and for my culture?
Yeah.
And so I kind of had this weird parental kind of tie or look on it because I didn't know any better. I couldn't just go to my dorm after school at BYU and say, hey, you guys want to come work with me this summer?
Yeah.
So that was one. 2, growing up with a family, 5 boys, like 6 kids. Everything we did was very team oriented. Like, my oldest brother's 2.5 years older than me. My older brother's 1.5 years older than me. Then there's me. And so we were all really close in age. So if one of us was doing something, all of us were doing it. If one of us was doing baseball, all of us were playing baseball. If one of us was learning piano, we were all learning piano. If one of us was going, off to scout camp, we were all so everything was really together. And so I got exposed kind of really early on to this, like, how things are. I mean, I shared a room with my 2 older brothers for most of my life. And, one bunk bed, one other bed, like clothes, toys. Like, you learn really quick that the room gets cleaned faster if you're all working together. And so I kind of just carried this team mentality into how I built not only the operations side, but into the sales side. And as I've fast forwarded now, and we'll get into this stuff, but now that I have seen a lot of the inner workings of sports teams, and I've read, coaching books and autobiographies and, front office, back office, coach, court, bench, starting 5, like, I've just started building teams based on how I see successful sales organizations being built.
That's awesome.
Was there an aha moment for you when you transitioned from the technical side to the sales side, when you were like, oh, dude, I'm freaking good at this. Like, I can do this.
Yeah, I always knew that I could do it based on my upbringing. If I wanted to play baseball, I had to sell like boxes of chocolates lights out. If I wanted to go to scout camp, I had to be the top seller for the pancake breakfasts. Like, if I wanted to go on the school field trips, I had to sell wrapping paper and popcorn. And so early on, like, I didn't have a problem going door to door selling, popcorn and chocolates and, that kind of stuff. And so I kind of
You grew up on the doors.
Yeah, I did. But I had also grown up with, with the stigma of salespeople are these greaseball salesmen, and if you say you're going to do something for this, then that's what it is. And my dad, coming from the contractor world where every company is bidding on these jobs, and the company's going to bid lower than you are, but then inflate the bill later just to win the bid. And then the pipe salesman and tool salesman come in, and they're trying to sell you stuff you don't need. And so I kind of had this, like, I kind of like pushed the salesman side of me, like suppressed it through my childhood and early teenage years. And then it came out and I was like, hey, this is, like you said, I'm pretty dang good at this.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I realized transitioning from the operations side to the sales side is especially when it comes to sales leadership, was how important being an example was. When I was on the technician side and a service technician forgot some of their equipment or ran out of chemical, it's, hey, I'll be right there. Hey, I'll be right there. Hey, I'll be right there. And I'd go and, help and help and help and help and help. And who cares what I was doing? What they needed was more important. In my first year leading a team on the sales side, hey, Kyle, I forgot my clipboard. Hey, I'll be right there. Hey, Kyle, I ran out of paperwork. Hey, I'll be right there. Hey, my phone died. Okay, I'll be right there with the charger. And I kind of carried over what I knew. Mm-hmm. But what that was taking me away from was my own sales success and my own rhythm and my own ability to go home at the end of the night with more sales than anybody on the team. And if I wasn't selling as a leader, then they weren't selling. If I wasn't working as a leader, even though I was doing all the important things, I was helping you, that didn't translate to the team doing well. And so my first year, actually, I sucked pretty hard as a leader.
Your personal sales?
Yeah, no, I still sold well.
Okay.
Back then, like 200-ish was the average. I sold 280 in a summer. But as a leader, I could have done so much more had I had led by example and not coddled as much. Like I really do believe that if you want to help people, you have to be able to help yourself. And looking back, that team, they loved me. They knew that I'd, take a bullet for them. They knew that I was a phone call away, and I'd drive over to them as fast as I could to deliver them from whatever hardship they were experiencing. Even if it was to go take them to the bathroom or get them a bottle of water. But had I had just said, hey, you're an adult, figure it out. You left your clipboard at home, go back and get it.
Yeah.
You ran out of paperwork. You should have planned better. Go back and get it. And instead, they just relied on me to do almost everything for them, and that babied them. It also took me away from putting up better and bigger and more consistent numbers, so that they could see the consistency and the power that comes from being consistent.
Okay.
So the following year, I flipped the switch and almost doubled my results. My team more than doubled their results, and it was just.
Did they adapt pretty quickly to the new style?
Yeah.
The new Kyle?
Yeah, the new Kyle style.
Oh, wait, what? You're not going to go get my clipboard?
Yeah. And and then now everything's iPads and digital.
Right,
so now
right.
now it's like, oh, my iPad died, so I can't sell. It's okay, grab an Uber, go to a Best Buy, get a Mophie battery pack, and get back out there. It's it's really if you wanna succeed, you have to. I mean, you can't want your people to succeed more than they want to succeed.
Absolutely.
Were there moments in that transition too, and that when you were figuring that out, where you were able to identify like top performers, and do you feel like some of the changes that you made brought out the best in them, and what kind of fulfillment did you get from that?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I thought one day was, the coaches aren't calling Michael Jordan, telling him to show up to practice.
Practice?
Coaches
We're
aren't-
talking about practice? Sorry, wrong guy.
No, coaches aren't calling Kobe, saying, hey, make sure you're out at 4 a.m. putting up shots.
Yeah.
And so I really thought to myself, the leaders and the guys that really want it are going to be the self-starters. They're going to be the ones coming to me saying, how can I train more? What can I do better? And those guys are the ones that I need to put a lot of my time and effort into. And then the rest of the people, I wanted to just kind of, hire people that were more just they were followers. If I put them with somebody really strong that was going to work the schedule, they'd work the schedule. If I put them with someone else that wanted to go catch movies or cut out early, they'd cut out early. And so I would try to just focus on building enough people on my team that wanted it, that were going to be steady examples and consistent, so that if I paired them with somebody that was either weaker or more of a fence sitter, that their strength would just kind of pull that person along. And you'd pit those people kind of against the
Sounds
lower,
like you're ready to be a
lower
mission
performers.
president.
No thanks. Hard pass. I'm dodging the subject by refreshing my Twitter feed on trades.
Good call. Anything coming through?
Nothing. Nope.
So what part, or when in your career did you either see the vision of an Aptive to where you're like, okay, this can be a long-term thing? So I did the summer thing for 5 years, right? So my first summer selling was 2003, and it was by no means the pitch designed for a career. It was totally come out for a handful of years and then just be done. That was the culture, that was the idea. And so when did you know, or was it taught to you, or did you see something you're like, okay, I could actually do this long term?
Mm-hmm. I think it was the transition from our first company, Eco First. We had sold our customer base off to Terminex. Dave and Vess rebranded, started the next brand, Altera, and it was kind of that transition where I hadn't really looked at it as a career. I looked at it as more of okay, this has a shelf life.
Yep.
But with Altera, as we started growing and we got a better office space, we got started investing in technology, better gear, put a basketball court in. We started trying to make it feel almost like a Silicon Slopes in Utah, make the blue collar feel more white collar.
Yeah.
And that's where it clicked, where it still worked for people that want to come out and do it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and have that be the stepping stone that helps them launch their future business or pay for grad school. Totally fine. Not everybody needs to make a career out of it, but we decided as a company to provide a way for it to become a career if people wanted to stay in it. And so we kind of built the structure so that people could transition off the doors eventually, so they're not having to uproot their family anymore and relocate to get an apartment for the summer with their kids. And so if you stuck with it long enough, you're able to definitely not be on the doors and kind of take more of a training and hands-on role in the summer season, and then recruiting and training in the normal, the off season and stuff.
Okay, that's cool. What part of your because you've always had your hands in a lot of stuff, growing up, sounding like you have your film business and your, skate shops, and you're doing all this kind of stuff. When did you kind of start to re-explore new opportunities? It feels like you were kind of head down focused on growing teams, organization, and Aptive, right?
Yep.
When did you start to oh, maybe I can go and look at this. I can take a bigger role and get heavy into sports, or I'm going to get into sneakers, or all this other stuff. When did that start to kind of bubble up?
Yeah, so I think 2014, 15 is when I started kind of really getting back into collecting sneakers.
Okay.
And back to reflect back to childhood, I'd have to work, I'd have to mow lawns and babysit and do things all summer long to get 1 or 2 pairs of shoes that needed to last me, wearing every single day the entire school year. And so I had always wanted the Jordans and the nicer sneakers, and I typically ended up with the Shaqs and the other things.
Pumps.
Yeah, the pumps are coming back. The
Right.
pumps are iconic. But yeah, I mean, I never had the pumps. My friends had the pumps, and they'd let me pump pump it and press the valve, and I thought it was the coolest thing. But I never had a pair of pumps back then. But yeah, so I
What's your most nostalgic shoe from your childhood? What was the first shoe that got you hooked?
It was honestly, it wasn't even a Jordan or anything like that. It was, I think the first shoe that really just got me hooked on it was a DC shoe. It was called the DC Boxer. It was a white leather shoe with blue accents on it. And I saved up, I bought it. And I had landed one of my first more technical skateboard tricks the first day I had those shoes on. Okay. And I was like,
it's got to be the shoes.
Exactly. The whole got to be the shoes. And so from then, it kind of just built from there. Yeah. Back in, 14, 15, I started kind of collecting again, getting into it and realizing that I could sell, sneakers as well. And for every 2 pairs I could sell, I could buy a pair myself and pretty much break even. And that way my collection wasn't costing me money, and I could justify it with my wife that, hey, I'm not dumping a bunch of money into sneakers because I'm selling these other pairs that are paying for my, my collection.
Yes, I remember. So really quick, my nostalgia moment for sneakers. It was 8th grade. I never forget. Tom took us. I still remember the store. It was this tiny little store on the corner in American Fork, and I got my first pair of Nikes. So it was 8th grade. I got my very first pair of Nikes, and they were the cheapest version of them, but I still remember it was black with a silver thing on the side. That is the moment that it was over from there, and now it's bad.
It's bad,
but that is my sneaker moment. That is when it all clicked. I got my very first pair of Nikes in 8th grade. My kids don't get that because my son came home from the hospital in Jordans. You little sucker. You just don't appreciate it. He doesn't have that moment.
Yeah.
But anyways.
I was about 8th grade too. Looking back, it was about 7th or 8th grade when that happened.
That was my first pair of Jordans too, 8th grade.
Really?
Yep. And parents were I was like, hey, I need basketball shoes.
Yep.
And then I would actually take the box. I keep the shoes in the Jordan box, and I would then I would put that in my duffel bag to go to my junior jazz game, because it was an extra layer of coolness. You open your freaking backpack, and they're oh, and I've got my box. Open that sucker up, and I'm like, okay. And dude, that's when you knew everyone
those collapsing dolls. That,
yeah, the Russian dolls. Yeah, dude.
Dolls.
And then you would hit the payphone and you'd call collect, and instead of doing your name, you'd be like, "Okay, come get me." And that's how your parents. That's how your parents knew to come get you.
Yep.
Just the things our kids will never experience. I feel so bad for them.
Yeah.
So going back 14, 15, how did you know where to get shoes? Because I remember I had a friend, and he would do the same thing. He would have all of his family, because they didn't have shoe drops like they did now.
Yeah.
That wasn't a thing. But I remember he would always buy, his goal was to always buy 10 pairs of shoes and make enough money so the 11th was free for him. Mm-hmm. So that was his style and how he did it, right? How did you know where to get shoes? How did you start to how did you figure out where to acquire?
I mean, I was in back in high school. I was in with a lot of the different teams. I played water polo, but I knew all the basketball players, and I skateboarded, so I knew kind of that community. And really, just looking back, it was just the networking. Somebody had a brother that worked at Foot Locker that would say, "Hey, this is coming out." The skate shop would get their order sheet a month or two in advance. And they'd say, "Hey, these are." I'd ask them, "Hey, what's coming out?" "These are coming out." I'd look them up in the CCS catalog, if you remember that. I'd look them up in the catalog.
Like a Beckett.
And
it's like the Beckett for shoes.
Exactly. Or East Bay.
East Bay. I was going to say, the East Bay
the East Bay catalogs. And so all of that kind of stuff, I would get into, and I would just kind of make lists of what was coming out.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, then 14, 15 with the internet, I mean, that definitely helped with sneaker news and Twitter feeds and stuff that definitely help with that. But as we've moved away from being able to line up and walk into a store or camp out overnight, the raffles just make it a lot more difficult.
Impossible. Is
Very,
the right word.
very. But fast forward to me knocking doors since 2012 in Southern California. Knocking doors, I'm running into the owners of the boutiques and the stores on Fairfax and the Flight Club and Mag Park and Cool Kicks, and I get to know the owners of the stores on like a personal level because I'm spraying their house for bugs.
Sure. And
they set aside some shoes or make things a little easier for me to get a hold of. I know people through my networks as I've grown at Undefeated that'll occasionally backdoor a pair or two, and so my literally knocking doors has opened up my ability to acquire sneakers for super crazy prices.
That's awesome
as well, which has been
when
great.
You're like, hey, I need some shoes or else these tarantulas.
I could take care of these rats.
Yeah,
but
so my first summer selling. That was how I got through. Every week I rewarded myself with a pair of shoes. I was in Chicago. And so every week I would buy a pair of shoes that I stayed.
So did you have any money left at the end of the summer?
No, zero. I made no money. But it was the same thing. Like, because we were out knocking, like I became really good friends with the guys who ran the shoe stores, like down in the hood. And so they had like exclusive Chicago sneakers that were coming out. Right. Mm-hmm. And so this is a sad story. I've told it before, but you'll appreciate it. I had all of these shoes in boxes, hadn't even worn them because it was pre-mish. So I packed them up, went on my mission, and I came back. I was like, Mom, where's all my shoes? Like, I had boxes and boxes. I had garbage bags full of boxes of these old shoes, these Jordans and limited release shoes. She's like, oh, all those old ones? I was like, yeah. She's like, no. Oh, I took them to DI.
Oh, man.
So I came home for my mission, and it was 2 of those black garbage bags full of like limited edition shoes that I'll never get back.
And you are still taking the tax savings from that. I mean, you got the little slips from DI, and you're like, hey, I'm showing a loss for this year from those shoes that got donated.
That's right.
Yeah, I had a pretty decent collection of Dunks from like the 90s, 2000s, and those burned down back when my house burned down. Thanks for reminding me. No. But yeah, I mean, looking back, like how popular Dunks are and like what the resale is, even on the classic Dunks, I'm like, man, I wish I could have saved the Dunks and my boxes of Pokemon cards. And I wasn't even into Pokemon, but I collected them with the hope that they would be worth something now, someday. And now is that day.
Now is that day. Yep. So just finishing up on the sneakers thread. So you've kind of become the go-to guy. Mm-hmm. If anyone needs a pair of sneakers, they know to come to you. Even professional athletes.
Yeah.
Celebrities, they're coming to you for sneakers.
Yeah.
Like, why is that a thing? Like, why is it that there is a guy that you have to go to, especially like an NBA athlete? Like, how do they not have access to these that you do?
Yeah. So unless they're like a really high, most athletes have like a sneaker endorsement or Nike, Adidas, but they're not, if they don't have their own signature shoe or they're not a really big player in the game, they're not getting a lot of the limited release ones. They might get the occasional friends and family pack, but even if they go onto their own like swoosh account or Nike, sport account, they can't go and drop, the new Jordans that are going to sell out and sneak on the sneakers app in 5 seconds into their cart. And so unless they have like an in with their Nike or their Nike rep really likes them or they're maintaining that relationship. And unfortunately, the agent isn't typically the player isn't the one that maintains the relationships. It's the agent.
Yeah.
And the agent isn't thinking, hey, my player really wants these shoes. I should get chummy with my Nike rep and make sure that my player is getting all of these things. Like, it's insane to me that a lot of the agents are just passing up on opportunities to create immense value, like immediate immense value for their players. Like if you're a player and you have a pair of sneakers and you pair it with a fit, you end up on League Fits or on social media, and those things are big. Like that's a big thing. It makes you more relevant. It gets your exposure out to other teams and other non-markets. Everyone's seeing it. And so those are things that are adding, in my mind, like great value to the player. It makes them more likable, more relevant.
That's how you separate yourself from other agents, right? Because you're doing these extra small things outside of the contracts and the negotiations that all agents can do. Those are the little things that make you, differentiate yourself. Yeah.
And so what I found too is with the athletes, they just want someone reliable, that's dependable, that's not going to exploit them, that's not going to, live stream their drop off. Like, hey guys, like I'm here dropping off a pair of sneakers to Donovan Mitchell, and they just kind of want it to be, low key.
Yeah.
And so I think looking back to where that kind of started with the players and
who was the first guy?
It was Donovan Royce. Donovan and Royce.
Those were your first guys.
My first two. Yeah.
Really? Like what was the connection? Like how did that first happen?
Donovan came and shot, did like a charity 3-pointer shootout for us his rookie year.
I remember that. Vess was telling, because hold on,
Joe was supposed
to be Joe, right?
It was supposed to be Joe, and then Joe couldn't make it or something.
So they just sent some rookie.
So they sent Donovan Mitchell down. We sent a limo up for him. He showed up, and I think he made like 75 out of 100 shots, and we were donating $250 per shot.
Okay.
To the Nothing But Nets Foundation. They fight malaria and mosquitoes and all that kind of stuff, and so. I had made a connection there with him briefly, and then I had met up with them randomly that January. They had beat the Warriors, just like we beat the Warriors last night.
Nice.
But we beat the healthy Warriors back then.
Draymond and Clay were playing.
Yep, exactly. And so we, Royce's barber, Philo, friend of mine, was in town, and I had linked up with him on social, and we had kind of chatted back and forth, and he happened to pass me at the game, and we talked for a second, and he had invited me to go out with them after the game to Ruth's Chris. And I was like, okay, we'll go to Ruth's Chris with Royce's barber, which means Royce is going to be there. Donovan will probably be there. Like,
you make this sound really casual. People would like die for the opportunity to like casually talk to this, and get invited out. Like,
and so I told myself not to like fanboy or whatever. And so I turned around on my drive home, met up at Ruth's Chris. And actually Philo it was there when they first unveiled their City Edition jerseys.
Okay.
So they had like the City Edition towel, that they had unveiled the court, all of that. Like, it was a really, really cool night.
Yeah.
So I had the City Edition towel because I was sitting right behind the Jazz bench that night. And the seats behind him had the towels to commemorate it. And Philo had offered, he's like, hey, you want me to get that signed by the players? And so I was like, okay, that'd be dope.
Yeah.
And so he called me after the game and said, hey, got all the players to sign it, even got coach to sign it. We're going to Ruth's Chris if you want to pull up. And so not only was I going to hang out with the players, but I was getting a towel signed by the entire 2017 team.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went back, and they were kind of in the back room, 6 of them there. Nobody was really eating like super heavy. Like they were all kind of appetizers or chicken or sides and chicken, nothing crazy.
At Ruth's Chris?
Yeah.
Chicken?
A lot of them were rookie. When they're rookie year, they can't eat steak every night. And the chicken is the more affordable thing on the menu.
I mean, we're sitting in Bam Bams, so
yeah, exactly.
I'm not really thinking about chicken.
Yeah. But yeah, so I kind of sat there for a second. The TV was on. They were watching all the post-game highlights from ESPN. Chatted with them for a second, let them know, hey, if you guys need me to find sneakers, I'm happy to. I'm not going to charge you guys a ton. Obviously, I'd love to have more repeat clients than like somebody that finds out I'm charging way too much.
Yeah.
If I can find a pair, I'll let you know. If I can't find a pair, I'll let you know really quick.
Yeah.
And because it's not my full-time job, I'm not a full-time sneaker reseller. That's not how I feed my family. Like, I have this job. I'm a regional manager with this pest control company. Like, and I told him, like, I'm already pretty
like, I'm good.
set. Like, I'm good. Like, financially, like, this isn't like me selling
This is fun.
It's fun. I love it.
The hunt and helping someone
And I
out.
said it's helping you guys not squander, your non-guaranteed rookie contract money on overpaying for stuff that you shouldn't have to overpay for.
What players were in that room? Do you remember still?
Yeah, it was so Royce, Donovan, I think Derek Favors was there. One of the G League 2A guy, what was his name? I can look it up real quick. But
That's awesome.
Not Gorgeous George's. That was before him, right?
yeah, that was right before him. Ekpe Udo was there.
Reading a
Eric McCree. Do you remember Eric McCree?
No.
He was G League, and then he was back and forth a little bit. He was one of their earlier 2As.
Okay.
And then Philo, the barber.
Yeah.
And so I very quickly just said, hey guys, like if you're not resting or practicing or playing, you're not perfecting your craft. Like you guys shouldn't be the ones getting up at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to jump onto sneakers to get this stuff. And you shouldn't be paying 3 to 4 times more than what it is. Like if I can find it, I'll charge you like $20-$30 more than what, I paid for it with shipping and my time, and I'd love to help.
Yeah.
And then on my way out, and again, why I reference why I looked at what they were eating, nobody had they didn't have like crazy bottles of wine on the table.
Right.
Like it wasn't going to be an expensive bill. On my way out, I didn't say, hey guys, I'm going to pick up the tab, but I stopped the hostess on the way out. And I just said, hey, the room back there, can I just take care of the bill for them? And did that. And on my way out, I didn't run back in, or they just did, again, nonchalant.
Yeah.
And for me, it was more just a gesture of like, hey, I just got to hang out with like a team that just beat the Warriors, a championship team. Like the least I can do is say thanks for letting me hang for a sec. I got a text from, I think, Donovan the next day, like, hey, thanks for picking up dinner. Message from Royce as well. And then the questions of, hey, can you find this and this and this started coming in.
Okay.
And I was able to deliver. And then my name and number started getting shared with the Jazz players. And then as trades happened with other players on other teams, like Josh Hart, when he was on the Lakers, I've dropped off shoes to Lonzo Ball. Like, there's a pair of shoes that may or may not have made their way to Chris Paul at one point that I helped find.
Okay.
Did you send those with khakis too?
Yeah, and a red polo shirt.
Perfect
for State Farm.
Yeah. You wrote on there, Cliff.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
And so it's been a fun, like, as sad as trades are, like for me and my network to expand, like trades are honestly a good thing.
Sure.
Sometimes.
Absolutely.
Because then more and more teams get connections with me, and more people are looking for sneakers, and it's evolved. It's evolved from sneakers to, hey, who's a good reliable auto detailer? Hey, where can I get my dog groomed? Hey, what are the good restaurant spots to take my girlfriend or my mom to when they're in town?
You're an NBA concierge.
It's exactly, like, so it's kind of evolved into this, like, I'm just the people's plug, I guess, if you call it that.
Malcolm Gladwell calls it a connector.
A connector.
That's rad. So first question, are you still active in sneakers for helping other people find stuff?
Yep.
Okay. So you're still active in that world. Have you built any kind of team, or do you still like doing it yourself?
I have, luckily I'm able to employ the help of my sales force.
Okay.
I have like a group me thread with, at some points, a few hundred of my sales reps. I'm like, hey, 8:00 a.m., get this. If you get the sneakers, $20 plus the cost of the sneakers.
Okay.
And so helping, with that helps. I have a few, like a small circle of like 5 or 6 people that are pretty active with me on releases and drops, and
cool.
They're scouring the web for, early links and that kind of stuff as well. And I'm usually able to find things, at worst case, I can reach out to the resale stores and swap a consigned pair that's going to yield the same profit to get a pair of shoes from them for close to retail or close to what I paid for the pair that I'm trading them.
Got it.
And so I've had these connections now with a lot of the reselling sneaker stores down in LA, where I can call somebody and for a pair that I got for retail, literally swap for a pair that's selling for $1,000. If my pair is also going to sell for $1,000, if I can size swap or switch for a style or a size or things like that. So I'm just trying to play it smarter, versus like having to go and pay, $1,200, $1,300, $3,000 for a pair of shoes to give to a player, just to make $20 on that,
Yep. So where did the Jazz start? when did you become one, a fan, and then two, when did you start like getting involved? Was sneakers the door into that?
Yeah. So my dad's a diehard jazz fan. He grew up here in Utah, Mapleton, Utah, but graduated from Provo High School, went to BYU, diehard. And in my early 90s, when it was the Jazz Bulls, or like, I guess late 90s, but in the 90s, I was a big, Bulls fan because of Space Jam and Michael Jordan. And what kid didn't like Michael Jordan? You got to be like Mike, Gatorade, everything. And Hanes, whatever. All the old, marketing. And so, but we'd watch the Jazz games growing up. We'd go to friends' houses. We'd watch the playoffs. And
would you watch the Michael Jordan's Playground?
Yes, Michael.
Come Fly With Me.
Oh, and so I was obviously a Jordan Bulls fan back then, but Stockton, Malone were amazing players, and my dad, my uncles, like my grandpa, always talked about John Stockton, Karl Malone, and so I loved the Jazz from like a family aspect. But I lived in Southern California, so they didn't feel connected. I didn't go to a Jazz game in person, ever until I moved up here.
Sure.
And then with Aptive, we had some season tickets and some like lower bowls, and then a suite as we kind of grew. So I started coming and bringing sales reps, potential reps, vendors, clients, friends, family, and being around it. It's fun when you get to see a team live and experience it. You kind of fall in love with the team. Yeah. Obviously, at that point, Jordan retired. I was a Lakers fan because of Kobe. But Kobe was kind of on his way, out with injuries and then retirement. And then as I started attending more of the Jazz games, and especially as these players really, Rudy Gobert came in, Joe, and then Donovan, and that's really when the Jazz kind of had a rebirth. Yeah, really was when they landed.
Darren and Boozer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so when you're watching people that you have eaten dinner with, and you're interacting with, and you're helping, and you're at the SB Awards with, and you're on stage with Rick Ross and James Harden and Donovan at an Adidas event in Compton at a high school, like you're
Hey, you just said a lot of things.
Yeah.
Really casually.
I ended up a few years back at the SB Awards. A player and his agent couldn't make it, and I had helped them find some stuff, and they hit me up because they knew I was in LA and said, "How quick can you get a tux?" And I said, "I'll go rent one right now."
Yeah.
And the next day I was at the SB Awards on the red carpet with one of my branch managers down there, and I'm not very athletic looking, nor am I very gorgeous. But the branch manager that I took, he could be a male model, looks very athletic, and they assumed he was an athlete, and I was like an agent, and so I was walking. We were on the red carpet. They put him up against like the city, the Capital One backdrop, or take his pictures. What's your name? And like they actually linked to his name's Kyle Calder, and there's I guess a old professional hockey player named Kyle Calder, and so all of the photos that are what's the photo service that they upload them all to. Getty. Yeah, all the Getty images are like hockey player Kyle Calder attends the SB Awards, and I'm in the background, and but yes, we ended up there and ended up at the after party, and then that was when LeBron had announced that he was coming to LA, and there was a welcome to LA party after the after party at the SBs.
So when you say I ended up at the after party, like how does that happen?
I don't know. The tickets obviously, and the red carpet stuff came with like the initial after party access, and then we ended up at the after party at a rooftop hotel in Hollywood, and Floyd Mayweather was there, Drake was there, all of LeBron's same class people, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, Cliff Paul. Like the Migos were there. Like it was just a crazy, crazy, crazy experience.
So how do you feel in those situations? Because like, I feel like physically from like you're about as different as you can get from like a LeBron James to a Kyle. Yep. You know what I mean? It's not like you would see
debatable.
like, oh yeah, like I could see that. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like, what is this guy doing here?
I mean, I sometimes get those looks, but the crazy thing about it is that because I am so different, by being there, everyone just assumes that I must be somebody important, or that I must be, if he's here, like he must be somebody.
Yeah.
And so like, they don't even like bat an eye
Act
a lot
as
of
if.
times. Exactly. And that's kind of growing up where I grew up and serving my LDS mission, where I served my mission in Mexico. Like, you walked past certain streets and you had to act like you belonged. You didn't look back and make eye contact. Like you just did it. And so, yeah, so being in those situations and, ending up, at the Adidas event with Rick Ross and James Harden and Donovan Mitchell during his rookie campaign and, the rookie of the year campaign stuff, like, that stuff is all just, for me, it was timing. I knew the right people, or had made friends with the right people at the right events.
Yeah.
I had become friends with one of the Adidas reps that manages like the Adidas relationship with the athletes.
Okay.
Who happens to be one of, James Harden's right-hand man. And he had said, hey, we're doing this event. If you want to come, I'll get you a VIP, wristband. All right. I didn't realize that Rick Ross was going to walk out on stage and perform in front of, at James Harden's middle school, where he was donating a redone gym, to them that day. And so again, being in those scenarios introduces you to so many people.
Yeah.
And I'm just,
how do you not be a fan and be a peer, right? Growing up being a sports fan, you know what I mean? Like, how did you like learn to play it cool?
Practice. And obviously on the doors, being on the doors, you had to learn how to mirror people.
Yeah.
Like, you learned that pretty early on too. If they were all hyped up, like I'm hyped up, if they're dancing, like, and bobbing their heads to music, like I'm doing the same thing. And if they have their phones out and recording, I'm assuming it's okay for me to have my phone out and record too.
Okay.
And if they're not, then I'm not, type of thing. And so it's really just kind of reading the room and kind of following what the current vibe is.
Okay.
And then again,
was there like a pinch me moment along, like in that world where you're like, how in the world am I here?
I mean, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
And again, like I can't pinpoint the exact like moment where what spurred all of that.
Yeah.
Like, really, except for honestly my house burning down. Like, looking back to that, because that introduced me to
Good thing that happened.
my wife, the company. The company gave me the sales skills and the confidence and the network to be able to be in the right position to meet these people.
Yeah.
And like everything else, like has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Because of it.
In your interactions you've had with, a lot of these athletes, we stereotype them in a certain way, because we know their public personas and stuff. What's an interaction or experience that you had with one of these guys where you thought they were one thing, but then getting to know them, you're like, oh, freak, man, I was way off. Is there anyone that sticks out in particular? Like, oh man, I couldn't stand that guy. But then you get to know him, you're like, oh, that guy is one of the most genuine, cool dudes I know.
Not really.
Well, that was a terrible question then. My bad.
No. I'm not really, but I'm also trying to be.
First time here.
I'm also trying to be careful with how I answer.
For sure.
For sure, yeah.
With
I understand.
who and how.
It's like guys that you hate playing against, but you love them when they're on your team.
Like,
Kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Donovan's as genuine as the news and press says he is. Like, Jordan Clarkson is honestly one of the best human beings alive. Joe's just as cocky, funny. Bernie, I don't know, like roasty. I don't know. You
Bernie?
Yeah.
roasty. I don't know. I don't know.
My favorite Joe story, I posted it last night, was we were at a summer league game, and if you're in Utah, that's the best way to go and meet the players because they all come and they just chill. So we were in the tunnel hanging out, and Joe was there, and my kids were trying to get an autograph. So we're like, hey, Joe, can you come say hi to the kids? And he was having a conversation, like, I'll be right back, I promise. And he got busy and distracted, right? After the game, he came and found us.
Wow.
And found the kids, took a picture, signed their stuff. And he's like, guys, if I was Donovan, you would have waited for me.
Yep.
But he's just such a good dude. Like, he came and found the kids after, took
and
time with them.
He's hilarious. Like, his sense of humor is like, it resonates well with me. Like, having him on the team was always like, you knew he was in somebody's ear. Like, you never knew exactly what he was saying, but if there was a player I'd want to be mic'd up in a game, it would be Joe.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, I would love to see like a mic'd up Joe in a game.
Mic'd up Joe v. Paul George.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So
I love hearing about that kind of stuff though, because like, you know, because I have had interactions that weren't very positive.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you give them the benefit of the doubt that you cut them on the wrong day, and everyone needs something from them. They're all picking at them and stuff, you know. But like, you know, Andrew knows about this, but like, I was golfing with my kids one night at a course here in Utah, and Tony Finau was in front of us, you know, and so. We, as a joke, because my kids wanted to meet him, I'm like, well, hey, let's just drive past him. I'll be like, hey, you're going too slow. We're going to play through, you know? And he had just lost the PGA championship. You know, he gave it up and he got second. Anyways, and so it was a Tuesday night. And so we go past him and we're like, hey, sorry, you're playing too slow. Let us play through, da-da-da-da. And he's like, laughed. He's like, yeah, it was just him by himself, had his headphones in. Anyways, so we go through and we play. And so we get back to the clubhouse and I gave my kids my car keys. And my son, you know, he's like 7 years at the time. He was 7 years old. My other son was, you know, 11. And I went to go take the cart back. Anyways, I'm walking back and I see a car stop and start handing them all this gear, handing my kids all this gear, you know, and then just drove away. And I go up to my kids and oh yeah, that was Tony Finau. And he just stopped and was like, hey, how was your round, man? How'd you guys do? Sat and talked to my kids. He's like, you want some free stuff? And, you know, gave him some golf balls and some hats. No cameras around. No one's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these, you know, these guys, they got this public personas and stuff, but to take the time, like some of them are really good and take the time and, you know, make someone's day, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, I love to hear that about that kind of stuff.
And I've realized that more of them are honestly just really down to earth, good people. Like, and they are at the end, they're humans, you know, they're elite athletes, but they're not machines. And,
Right.
And so typically the ones that are, you know, jerks sometimes are typically it's being kind of sought after, like the person asking is asking the wrong way, or they just got hit with maybe some bad news, or,
Sure.
you know, just an off day. Like obviously asking a player for an autograph after they lose a game on the way out of the tunnel probably isn't going to happen. So I asked him for an autograph and he was a jerk.
Yeah.
Like he told me no. You just have to kind of, again, for me, it's reading the room with them. But
You bring up Harden though, because I think about Harden. Like, Harden's got a certain persona. I mean, other than that sweet gif where he like rolls his eyes and he like leaves the frame, which we all have used and it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, but like other than that, you know, he kind of comes off like he's aloof, doesn't really want to connect with people. You know what I mean?
Oh, he's
kind of a ball hog, right? Like I would never want to play on his pickup team. Actually, I probably would now at this stage in my career. I'd be like, here you go, dude, take it, take it. I'm just gonna stand here at 3-point line. I don't want to do anything else.
But like a Kevin Durant like comes off sometimes as you know kind of cold. Super good dude. Paul George. I was with Paul George back when they were
Don't
in
tell
town.
Jingles that.
I was with Paul George after the Clippers Jazz game when they were here in town, and again just super down to earth. Really, you know, great conversations. And just a really good dude. The only player I've ever had a bad interaction with.
You don't have to name if you don't want to.
No, I will. This one's personal.
Yes, this is nitty gritty.
The only player I've ever had a bad interaction with was Pat Beverly. But that's his MO. He's
it's almost probably strategic with him anyway.
Yeah, and that's the player he is, and like you know he knows who he is, and he wants to be that player. So I show up to the Jazz Clippers game 5 or game 4. It was when they got eliminated. Yeah, game 4 because we lost 4 in a row against the Clippers, didn't we?
we were up 2-0 to game 6.
Oh yeah, so it was game 6. Yeah,
The Terrence Man.
Yeah, exactly. Game 6. It was game 6 in LA. I was like, okay, we're either going to win or lose. It's either going to be done or we're going to move on. Team is hurt. Conley, Donovan, playing through injuries. Like, we're not in a good spot. I'm going to put on the elf costume. And it wasn't wintertime. It was midsummer. So I fly in. I was doing some training for Aptive and stuff. So I was already there for work. Pulled my elf costume out, changed in the bathroom out in front of this, like in the restaurant at the Staples Center. Made some signs. And the signs weren't bad. Like the long-standing like Paul George, Joe Ingles is that's as long as they played against each other, there's been like this kind of playful banter. And
that's one way of putting it.
If Joe beats, outplays Paul George, the memes on the internet are, Joe holding Paul George as a baby.
Yeah.
If Paul George does the same thing, it's Joe on his back and his shoulders. It's like, Joe's my son or I'm his dad. Yeah. And so I made a sign that said, hi Paul George, I hope you find your dad, or bye Paul George, bye Paul George, I hope you find your dad, and a picture of Joe Ingles like giving a thumbs up because I was in an elf costume. I mean, the whole like narwhal, like bye buddy.
Yeah.
And so I said that was like, I quoted the movie, worked it in, I did research, I made sure that like Paul George knew who his dad was. Like there wasn't like, it wasn't going to be like conflicted, especially with, how charged things have been over the last few years. The sign passes the security inspection at the door, passes the secondary inspection before I walk down to my seats. What's on the sign? Let's read it. Nobody says anything. I walk down, ESPN, sees me holding signs, and my tickets were right behind the ESPN booth. The different announcers were like, "This is going to be fun." I have elf quotes ready to throw out.
Yeah.
My friend runs the cameras for the Kings, the Clippers, and the Dodgers, and he sees me walking from the green room he's in. He's like, "Kyle, are you here in an elf costume?" Yep, that's me. And he was like, "This is going to be great." Pat Beverly's out warming up. He sees some commotion, looks over. I'm holding my signs up, like the sign guy that's, holding that up, finishes his warm up. He's walking towards me and I'm like, I've never met this dude. He's probably going to dab me up, or maybe he's heard of me, or maybe he remembers me from a Christmas game. He steps over ABC, climbs up onto a railing, row 1, 2. Like he comes into the stands, which they're not supposed to do.
Ooh. Yeah. And you're like, holy crap, is this Ron Artest?
And yeah, exactly. Comes into the stands, and I reach out to like say what's up to him. He grabs my signs, rips them up, throws them on the ground, steps on them, and then picks them up, throws them in the trash, walks off, doesn't say anything.
Were you like, no shoes for you?
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, what the heck just happened? And then like the security goes and they pull the signs out of the trash because like they're in the back tunnel. Turns out they're trying to piece them together to see like if what was said, like if there was anything bad, if they could kick me out. And I was just still in shock. I'm like, this just felt weird.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to blow it up, mainly because of the Jazz fans' track record of like Jazz fans are racist, or Jazz fans are this or that. And again, I'm in my elf costume, so I don't think people are going to take me seriously.
Yeah.
But if like the more I thought about it, I was like, wait, like he came into my protected space. Like if I went onto the court to do that, I'd be done. Done. He came into my space. He destroyed and took my personal property. This just isn't right. But okay, well, I'm just going to brush it off. And then security comes and pulls me out of the chair.
Oh no.
And they walk me down a hall, put me in a room. There's 2 more security guards, a police officer, and they're like, what was on the sign? What did it say? Like,
did you have your cameraman buddy? Like, did they have any shots of it or anything? Or?
So my buddy, he said if I would have reached out to him that day, he would have given me the footage, and like I could have put it on Twitter and made it go viral or whatever. But I mean, I didn't want to play that way. Yeah. But yes, they pulled me out of the chair. Like, we could have you banned from the arena, and you shouldn't be here with those signs. And I was like, dude, the sign was a quote from the freaking movie.
Yeah.
And it was a funny history back and forth of Joe Ingles and Paul George. Like, there was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, if you keep this up, we're gonna kick you out of the arena. You won't be able to watch the games. Like, can I just go back to my seat? So like, let me go back to my seat.
Yeah.
So my buddy texted me, he said, I got a memo saying that we can't show the elf, like, unless it's unavoidable. And so like all the camera people like couldn't put me on camera, like couldn't put me on TV and everything, all because of this interaction with Pat Beverly. And so I made a promise to myself that every time that I play, or my team plays whatever team Pat Beverly's on, right now it's the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
I will wear my elf costume to the game. Like, he'll remember me. There's no forgetting.
Have you had any other interactions since?
No. So the game that I went to in Christmas, he was out on COVID protocol. And then the game that he was in town in December, I had gotten COVID. So the one game that we had this season, I couldn't see it. But I mean, I'll fly.
What though? Timberwolves tickets are probably pretty cheap
exactly.
right now. You should probably head out.
Courtside.
Yeah.
I could sit courtside for like $100 out there.
They might actually give you something to go sit there.
Yeah. And so I mean, for me, I'm just going to have a playful relationship with Pat Beverly moving forward. And it's going to involve my elf costume.
So where did the elf come from? And I'm taking way too much of your time, but let's end here.
No, you're good.
Like, because you are now literally famous for the elf
phenomenon.
Like, you have its own Twitter account. Every ESPN broadcast talks about it. So where did the elf come from?
So 2009, I mean, I loved the movie when it came out. I mean, who doesn't love Elf?
Of course.
If you are listening to this podcast and you don't like Elf,
Probably turn it off.
Turn it off.
right now.
Yeah. You're not.
You
Spoiler alert.
You don't deserve this.
Yeah.
But so I loved the movie. Picked up an elf costume back in 2009. We were doing some sub for Santa stuff, Secret Santa stuff at work for Aptive, and so I was like, "Hey, it's a stressful time of year for people. I'm gonna go do my Secret Santa sub for Santa shopping in an elf costume. Walmart, Target, everywhere."
But it's like a nice elf costume.
Yeah, so the
looks
original
legit.
one, the original wasn't.
Okay.
And it's like kind of upgraded it, since. But honestly, like a kid was crying in an aisle, like in the cart with his mom. Like mom was like shushing him. The kid looks up, sees an elf, stops crying. Like the mom like laughs and she's like, "Thank you," And like I walk past a group of people and I'm in the next aisle over and I hear like people laughing. "Did you see the elf? Why is there someone dressed like an elf at the store?" And so like for me, it became very, very clear very quickly that even if I didn't interact with people, them being able to see somebody dressed like an elf, walking around, crossing the street, going through the drive-through, Buddy the elf,
the elf.
It made a difference in people's lives. And so as I've done it kind of on a bigger and bigger scale. And what better place to dress up as an elf than a live sport event?
Yeah.
You're 19,000 people in the arena. You get to see them walking in. You get to see them walking out. You get to see them walking across the street. And so I adopted that into the NBA. 2018 is when we had our first Christmas game, I think. 18-19 season, I think.
Even though it was the late night one.
Yeah.
It was the one that started at like 9 o'clock at night.
9 o'clock at night. So I wore my elf costume, made it on the dance cam in a dance off, beat the kid, totally destroyed the kid.
Wiped the floor with them.
Well, so the kid ripped his shirt off and like started swinging over.
Oh,
his
that's
head.
an easy move.
And so I couldn't do that because my elf costume, but I'm bald under my hat. So I pulled my wig and my hat off and like swung it around. So like I went from Seth Rogen to Tom Segura, really really quickly. And so like then I tracked the kid down and gave the kid the $250 gift card because I didn't want to take money from the kid. Anytime I've won the contests, I always find somebody and just give it to them because again, it's part of why I wear the costume
For sure.
And so I started doing like the December games. And this last season, that just like the season we're in right now, I said every game from Thanksgiving on in December, I'm going to wear my elf costume. And so it was a commitment. Like I picked up 2 more costumes.
That was one of the funny things they talked about on one of the ESPN games. They're like, I hope he washes that because
yeah. So
and you had just posted on social like I have 3 of them.
Yep, I have 3 of them. It was to answer what's her name,
Doris?
Yeah, not Doris.
Holly?
Holly. Holly had made a comment about it, and then Joe.
Oh yeah.
Joe had made a comment about it too. And my comment back to Joe was he was wearing the same City Edition jerseys he was wearing the night before. I was like, "You're wearing the same costume you were wearing last night," And so I started doing that, and it started getting a little more national coverage. So I created a TikTok and an Instagram and a Twitter that I'm going to put kind of more effort into. And next year, I'm either going to attempt to go to every Jazz game, like even the away games during the Christmas season, and just show up as the Jazz NBA elf, even at the away games.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to take it to a bigger extreme and just start up in the Northeast and hit one game in one arena a day.
You could be like the new upgraded. What's that? Jimmy Goldstein. What's that?
Jim Goldstein.
Jimmy Goldstein, dude. You could be like the new upgrade.
I'm friends with Jimmy Goldstein.
Are you?
Yeah.
Have you sold him some shoes?
No.
Not sold him a jacket.
Nope. He's pretty set in that department.
You will be the next guy. That'll be you.
I mean,
That's a torch you need to carry.
There's what's his name on the Raptors, the super fan that got the ring when they won a championship. Like, I'd love to be the super fan that gets a ring.
Sure.
When they win.
Has the elf thought of? I mean, I'm speaking in the third person now. Has the elf thought of maybe appearing in other sporting events?
I'd be open to it.
I think it'd be cool, man. Waste Management Open. Like, there's just the elf. Because one thing I've noticed, because this is the first time I met you was today, but because I've seen you at Jazz games and stuff too, and you have a commitment to the character that you will not laugh. You are like, no, dude, I am all in and no one's going to catch me. I'm not going to break. Like, the Saturday Night Live guys and the skits and stuff, everyone's like, ah. You're like, no, dude, you are stone cold killer. And I love the commitment. I would love to see it like, Tiger or Fina or someone's teeing off and then like in the Masters or something right behind him. It's just like, The elf.
Yeah, and for me, it's like a Where's Waldo?
Yes!
It's like, because I trade tickets
Yes.
with a lot of the other season ticket holders to place myself in different places around the arena.
Yeah.
So I'm not in the same seats every night. So people are like, where's the elf? Where's Kyle? And honestly, the staff, even the players, like people are, they thank me at the end of the Christmas season, like, wait, why aren't you in your elf costume? Or, oh, it's not Christmas anymore. Like, that was just brightened my day. I looked forward to seeing the elf when I came to work. I looked forward to seeing the elf more than I looked forward to seeing the players and the game. I'm like, man, I wanted to see the game.
That speaks a lot about you.
But I mean, it's a commitment. The tights is like actually a full yellow bodysuit underneath the jacket. Like the jacket's there.
Is it hot?
Hot up top, not so hot down below.
I feel like JC could get you some sort of Lulu setup
I might
for that.
get like a Lulu, a Lulu setup. But I mean, there's a guy I'm talking to that is gonna, potentially make jazz colored elf coats, like jackets, like the jazz jersey colors to maybe, when they're wearing their city edition, I could wear a city edition elf costume and, really taking some things up a notch.
Oh my gosh. I had a really funny idea. We'll talk about it after, having him do something with Trey.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry.
Yeah. And I mean,
That
and
would-
then,
Have you met Will Ferrell yet?
I have.
Okay.
No, not. I've met Trey. I've met our Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
not the Will Ferrell yet. But I'd love to end up at a sporting event where he's at and make that work. And then I think to finish the story, the coolest thing about this season was when the Jazz social media and the Jazz Bear reached out to me to film. They wanted to film a little bit with me, and we recreated with the Jazz Bear a few like scenes from the Elf movie, and that showed on the Christmas Day game. Aired on ESPN.
Like it was the syrup.
The syrup and the
Spaghetti.
escalator and the hopping across the street and
Yeah.
and so that showed, and then it panned to like me and the Jazz Bear in his elf costume and me and mine at the end, and that was it was a really good reward to me to now like be friends with the Jazz Bear and
A lot of commitment.
when I was at the Charlotte Hornets game a few weeks back with some of my sales reps on the East Coast, I hit up the Bear and said, "Hey, I'm here at the Jazz game." He goes, "Oh, I'm gonna have Hugo come say hi to you," and like Hugo the Hornet came by and was like,
That's cool.
"Hey,
They like all know each other.
Oh,
Hey,
like they legit like they have
like, what does those hangouts
they,
look like?
right? They go out to each other's arenas for each other's birthdays and they go party.
They're like,
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, hey, let's go to the stadium and just slide down the stairs together or something, It's not like, hey, do you want to watch a game or you want to watch Netflix?
But yeah, no, the mascot community is a pretty tight knit community, and I'm friends with Robin Lopez as well. And, his mascot history is fun, and so I was sending him pictures of me with the Jazz Bear when we were filming our bits, saying Jazz Bear's making me choose Rolo or Jazz Bear. Like, what do I pick?
I'm a huge Benny the Bull fan. I love Benny the Bull.
Benny's
dude.
great.
Oh man, have you ever met Benny?
Not in person, but
When he does the popcorn stuff.
oh yeah,
Oh, classic.
yep.
Anyways.
That's so fun. Well, dude, we could keep going for a long time.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on. And this has been so rad. So everyone follow you. We didn't even get to talk about where your social media handle came from. I still don't know that story.
Yeah, another day. Maybe we'll have to do
do another one.
nitty gritty 2.0.
Yeah. So check him out, NBA Elf. Thank you, Kyle, for coming on, man. Been a ton of fun.
Thanks
Pleasure.
for having me.